Vince McMahon has shaped WWE's most explosive and influential creative eras. His vision transformed a regional wrestling promotion into a global entertainment powerhouse. And there is a compelling case, at least with some WWE loyalists, for a desperate need to see him influence WWE once again. While today's WWE has evolved since his departure and experiences a huge level of success, these same fans that want McMahon back in the mix claim that it lacks maybe stability and some of that fundamental magic that it's missing without his signature creative force upon it. They feel the urgent, dangerous, yes, culturally unavoidable need to see McMahon back in the mix. For diehard fans making this case, maybe not so much casual fans who've rejoined WWE fandom in the past few years, for them, the cracks are there in the creative regime of WWE becoming more visible. And the mishandling of John Cena's retirement tour and the heel run and Rock's apparent absence, it all created a chaotic environment, and they voiced their concerns in a very particular setting. Yes, Saturday night's main event in Washington, D.C., this same disgruntled sect of the wrestling fandom chanted, "We want Vince," during the post-show panel after the beloved John Cena's questionable and controversial farewell match. For some of the more casual wrestling fans, this may just seem like a nerdy battle cry, but why does this part of the WWE fanbase want Vince McMahon, who recently turned 80 years old and still has a very serious pending civil lawsuit involving a former WWE employee against him? Why do they want to see him back in the power structure of WWE? Yeah, we're not ignoring those real-life issues, but strictly talking about the fan frustration. Why do some fans want Vince McMahon back? This is Sportskeeda Wrestling. I'm Kevin Kelm. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Man is one of the greatest contributors to WWE, not just from a business growth potential, but from a creative identity. He understood what wrestling was, not merely just as an art form, but what it could become, not simply just good matches with logical outcomes, but the emotional investment, the symbolism, and the moments that made it feel historic in real time. WrestleMania, the Attitude Era, the rise of megastars like Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, The Undertaker, John Cena, the myth-making around legends, it all really came from Vince's obsession with spectacle and narrative importance. At the core of McMahon's creative success was an understanding of character arcs. Wrestling under him was defined by clear motivations and larger-than-life identities. Cena, in particular, is one of Vince's most carefully constructed creations. Certainly, it was something that Cena himself created, from a brash rapper to a polarizing superhero in the ring, but a standard-bearer confronting his own legacy. Cena's evolution was intentional. Even when fans rejected him, McMahon leaned into the reaction rather than retreating from it, creating a strong kind of friction around Cena that propelled everything with him in WWE forward. Cena was never booked as just another guy, even when he was on the losing end of matches. His matches mattered because they were framed as chapters in a larger story. And for some, this is precisely why Triple H's creative leadership may have faltered more visibly recently, specifically with Cena and his retirement tour, which had astronomical expectations that most emotionally didn't have that resonating arc we've seen in WWE history. Instead, it kind of felt muddled, inconsistent, and in parts where it should have the most emotional depth, it felt strangely hollow. John Cena's limited schedule also aided in making it feel rushed. WWE did explore Cena's resentment and insecurity and desperation as a fading icon, but the time frame in which it was executed just wasn't connecting with fans who didn't want to boo Cena on the way out. They were going to react to him, but they weren't going to react to him like a villain. They weren't going to commit to the story that was being presented, and we all knew Cena was going to be a babyface hero before it was all said and done. The heel persona lacked clarity, and within weeks, Cena was drifting back towards nostalgia without a meaningful resolution, and in the final tour of his career. Even worse, Cena's losses during his retirement tour felt routine rather than monumental. Under McMahon, yes, we're getting back to that comparison, when a legend lost, it was positioned as a moment of transition or tragedy, and Cena losing his career and retiring the way he was positioned as tragic. But think Shawn Michaels losing to The Undertaker, or even Cena himself passing the torch on in a carefully framed encounter, which he did. But in the eyes of these same fans, they simply think it'd be better under Vince McMahon. Under Triple H, they claim that Cena was booked like an emotional enhancement talent during his farewell tour, but that feels like a reach. With expectations through the roof, WWE didn't exactly hit the mark. Yeah, at best, to make a football analogy, WWE, with Cena's retirement tour, could have scored a touchdown, but they settled for a field goal at best. These same fans feel that McMahon in charge would have scored that touchdown. The mishandling of Cena becomes even more glaring when combined with the turbulence of The Rock. The Rock's sporadic, inconsistent appearances, sudden alignment shifts for him as an influential character, a storyline hijacking that feels like it disrupted long-term narratives, all kind of come back to him. Triple H and his creative team had to deal with the balance of The Rock's star power coming in and then keeping it coherent with a storyline when he can't be there all the time, when he's not present to pull off a significant pivotal role as the influence to make Cena evil as he did. The angles involving the final boss feel like maybe obligatory appearances on camera rather than organic creative decisions with huge consequences we're excited to see play out. Yeah, it's creating tonal whiplash and underwhelmingly shaking ongoing feuds. Vince McMahon, for all of his indulgences with superstars like The Rock, knew how to make his appearances feel seismic and purposeful. They're still seismic, but that purpose, we have to question that. Rocky showing up under McMahon meant that the story around him had intention. With Triple H and his detractors, they feel Rock's involvement feels more like an emergency shake glass in case of emergency button. Let's go there, forcing abrupt pivots and unresolved storylines. Yeah, we didn't get a resolving storyline between The Rock and Cody Rhodes. The common thread across all of these examples is a creative regime that prioritizes structure and patience over urgency and emotion, though all of those are important factors in presenting what WWE does. Triple H's creative team is cleaner, more logical, more internally consistent, but maybe often lacks that visceral punch that we got under Vince McMahon, the X factor of everything that McMahon did. He knew when to get crazy. Triple H, he gets crazy, but we see it coming a little bit more ahead of the line. It doesn't have a, oh wow, what a swerve! Except, ooh, wow, that swerve. We saw that coming. It's not a swerve then. He believed that wrestling should sometimes feel uncomfortable, excessive, and unpredictable. The mindset produced mistakes, but also produced lightning in a bottle several times. We are not going to ignore the criticisms of Vince McMahon in the late 2010s. Maybe when some felt his instincts felt outdated in modern pop culture, and there could be some truth to that. His micromanagement, erratic rewrites, that would be very inconsistent, and a resistance to a certain level of fan-driven movements to create excessive, massive frustration with everyone from the performers in the ring to the fans buying the tickets and watching the TV. However, those flaws do not negate his natural understanding of wrestling psychology, a business he grew up in. McMahon reinvented WWE multiple times across changing cultural landscapes. His failures were often more results of stubbornness, not an inability to evolve. But when he chose not to, it affected the product. In a modern WWE with a corporate oversight and a collaborative structure, maybe Vince's ideas, his worst impulses, could be restrained and his strengths could be maximized. Yes, Vince McMahon without unrelenting power over the story. It's a wild concept and maybe the wildest one we'll present here. What WWE needs is a balance, maybe from what McMahon brought to the table and put in the roots of WWE with what WWE's doing now. He brought urgency, symbolism, and emotional excess. Triple H brings structure, continuity, and in-ring credibility that applies psychology. Right now, WWE maybe feels a little bit overmanaged, maybe creatively too conservative. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. If you were booking WWE, what would you change? And why would you change it?